If you're new to the business, it's good to know how electricity works. Basically, your utility is a manufacturing facility. You either buy and resell electricity, you buy it from a wholesale supplier, resell it to your customers, or you generate your own product, electricity, through power plants, and then you resell it to your customers. So knowing how the system works, how the FERC Uniform System of Accounts is set up around that really is a great benefit, and after you've been at this for a while, will be a piece of cake, and you'll have all the account numbers memorized, and it'll be really a straightforward process for you. But the path of electricity works like this. On the one hand, we generate electricity or we buy someone else's generation. So power plants create electricity. You have your fossil plants like coal, natural gas. There's nuclear. There's renewables like hydro, solar, and wind. So those sources generate electricity, and then we either buy it or perhaps we're the generator. But then you have to move the electricity. So there are what we call transmission assets. So transmission assets are the superhighway of moving electricity from the power producer to the end user customer. Think of it like the interstate highway. You buy something at a wholesale facility, and then you ship it to another city, and there you deliver it to a customer. Well, to get there, you use roads, use the interstate, and so on. So transmission is like the superhighway to deliver and move the electricity. So you have high voltage lines, they move the power long distances, and the electricity gets stepped down from 765 kilovolts down to 69 kilovolts, and on the way through substations and other means in order so that it can be used by the end users and go into houses and businesses at 240 volts, 120 volts, and so on. And that gets distributed to customers through distribution plant assets. That is the local system that delivers electricity to homes and businesses. Now, why does this matter for accounting? Well, the FERC accounting structure mirrors the physical system. Generation accounts are accounts 310 to 348. Transmission is 350 to 359. Distribution is accounts 360 to 374. And each function has its own set of accounts. So if you know the function, you'll know the account range. And if you do this long enough, eventually you'll have these accounts numbered, pretty well memorized. And the reason that these are separated is because in an electric cost of service study, where you code things determines which customer group pays for it and how they pay for it in their rates. So your customers are divided into classes. You have your residential customers, commercial customers, industrial, large power, and each one of those places a certain demand on the system. And where you classify those costs determines who is going to pay for what. I urge you to take our rates course. It really lays this out in great detail and a lot more understandable. But basically, all you need to know coming from this course is where you code things, you need to be accurate so that your rates are accurate as well. Because the electric industry requires massive infrastructure investment. Billions and billions of dollars every year goes into power plants, transmission lines, substations, distribution systems. These are financed through revenue bonds, long-term loans, infrastructure charges, grants and partnerships, and customer rates. And an electric system really only lasts about 30 years. So that means every 30 years you need to massively reconstruct your system. Now, you don't do this all at once. You do this on a regular basis to keep up. But that's why it's important on where you code things and how they are recovered in your customer rates, because your customer rates will provide you with the monies to replace these planned assets at their historical cost. So if you're an investor-owned utility, generally you are governed by a state commission that approves your rates. If you're a municipal utility, you generally have oversight by a utility board or the city council. If you're an electric cooperative, you have a board of directors that oversees your rates and approves your rates. So everything that goes into your general ledger and where it's coded will drive your rates, But the end result is that your regulator needs to know this information to approve your rates and also to determine whether the investments that you're making in infrastructure are prudent. Now, in the energy business, there's three types of utilities. There's investor-owned utilities. These are for-profit corporations. They're owned by stockholders. They're generally regulated by state commissions and by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Then there's electric cooperatives. These are owned by their members, and they're technically a not-for-profit, and they generally serve rural and suburban areas. Then there are municipal utilities. Those are city and government owned. They're also technically not-for-profit, and they serve local communities. Now, don't let the term not-for-profit sway you. These electric co-ops and municipal utilities still need to generate a profit and reinvest it in the business in order to continue to provide reliable electric service. And investor-owned utilities and municipal utilities follow the FERC Uniform System of Accounts. Electric co-ops follow what we call the Rural Utilities Service Uniform System of Accounts, the RUS Uniform System of Accounts. And it's really just like the FERC Uniform System of Accounts, but it has some quirky differences, and we have a class that covers that as well. So for purposes of this class, we are directing this towards investor-owned utilities and municipal utilities.